Amazing twins return. 7 years later, with a surprising secret that exposes his incredible deception. Sarah stood at the kitchen sink, scrubbing dishes while the biting winter wind howled outside. She looked out the window at the flurries falling gently against the twilight. Whispers of excitement fluttered through the air as her twin sons, Ethan and Noah, returned home from college for break. Yet, as the warmth of the season approached, an icy dread settled in her chest. 7 years had passed since her husband vanished, leaving behind not only unanswered questions, but a void entwined with silence that loomed over their lives like a specter. The boys were bright and driven. She had worked tirelessly to instill that in them. Yet the undercurrents of their missing father's legacy haunted every corner of their tight-knit home. As they shifted from youthful innocence to young adulthood, could they find solace or only resentment in the veil of their father's absence? With every passing day, guilt twisted inside Sarah, conflicted by the pride in her son's accomplishments, yet pained by their empty family table. When Ethan and Noah arrived, each wall adorned with memory seemed to echo their childhood laughter, now alienated by the knowledge of what remained unspoken. The boys had become closer to the truth of their father, hinting at mysteries she had long buried, refusing to confront. What their father had hidden from her, the secrets that might unearth a past she once cherished, whipped inside her with a painful urgency. No one knew their father's truth better than she did. Yet, what if her perception turned out to be just a lie veiled in delusion? Before she lost herself in those looming shadows, Ethan burst into the kitchen, radiant with energy. "Mom, you won't believe what we found." The fervor in his voice sent a bolt of unease rippling through her. He held up an envelope, worn and yellowed, its edges threatening to crumble under the weight of decades-old secrets. She set the sponge down, feeling the gravity of his words press against her chest. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." "Mom," Noah spoke more cautiously, his voice somber. "We need to know what was going on with Dad. This isn't just about him anymore. It's about us." Panic clawed at Sarah's throat, paralyzing her body as Ethan shoved the envelope toward her. Reality twisted into a tight knot of fear. The idea of discovering anything less than the man she once cherished threatened to unravel the very fabric of their family. As she took the envelope, the weight felt more profound than she could have imagined. Their father's betrayal, a thought she had never entertained, now loomed like a storm on the horizon. Doubt clashed with skewed loyalties. What if she had been protecting a lie? The thought alone sent a visceral chill through her. A love meant to be a sanctuary was now a potential battlefield. Sarah looked into the hopeful faces of her boys, eyes glimmering with determination, yet clouded with unasked questions. Torn between the unconditional love for her sons and the oppressive grief of her husband's hidden life, Sarah could feel storm clouds gathering. Pressing her lips together, she realized the answers they sought might only fracture the fragile bond they'd forged amidst adversity, unraveling the family stitched together by shared pain. And as the snow gathered outside, so did the uncertainties within her home. The embers of their sibling closeness now threatened to erupt. Would the pursuit of truth light the way to healing? Or would it lead to a darkness deeper than any of them could fathom? As the weighty silence filled the room, the only certainty left was that secrets had stirred, and the journey toward understanding had only just begun. The room felt suspended in time, the weight of the yellowed envelope pressing heavily on Sarah's palm. She could sense the air becoming thick with anticipation, interspersed with the faint, familiar scent of pine from the Christmas tree in the corner. An image of her husband, smiling, flashed momentarily in her mind before it was shrouded by doubt and darkness. This was not the moment she had envisioned for her family reunion. "Mom, please," Ethan urged again, his voice cutting through her spiraling thoughts. She met his gaze, and in that instant, she saw in him a fierce determination, a reflection of her own hesitations. The need for answers became palpable, seeping into every corner of her being. "I can't—" She forced the words out, her voice trembling. "I can't just go digging into his past. What if it destroys us?" The irrational fear of unearthing buried secrets made her heart race, echoing the turmoil that danced wildly in her mind. "We deserve to know," Noah countered, the conviction in his tone rising above her fears. 7 years, Mom. We've had all this time to wonder, to fill the spaces with what-ifs. But what if we're wrong? What if he had a reason? His words threaded a possibility Sarah had quietly feared. What if he wasn't the man she thought he was? For a fleeting moment, doubt crept into her reflection. The strong foundation of love she had established within this family now felt brittle. Was it built on a lie? All at once, the question loomed larger than her own insecurities. Could she be the one to initiate this unraveling? It was a reckoning she had avoided, one that demanded not just her honesty, but also an unwavering vulnerability. Gripping the envelope tighter, she felt the pull of responsibility. A mother's instinct told her this was the moment her sons would determine their own paths, and she wouldn't be able to shield them from the truth, no matter how convoluted. With trembling fingers, Sarah slid the envelope open. The scent of aged paper filled her senses, a reminder of time lost. Inside, a stack of letters waited. Their neat script unmistakably belonged to her husband. Her heart raced, every uncomfortable thud echoing the tension in the room. She could feel Ethan and Noah's expectation hanging in the air. Gathering a breath, leaning into her courage, Sarah pulled one letter from its dusty confines. Each word felt like a kernel of truth, yearning to escape the confines of their past. The handwriting, so familiar, sent jolts of memories cascading through her. A tapestry of love and now, betrayal. "Listen," she said, clearing her throat, voice barely above a whisper. "If we're going to do this, if we're going to search for answers, then we have to be ready for whatever comes out of it. We cannot turn back if we find something we didn't expect." Ethan nodded, his eyes reflecting a mix of hope and dread. Noah's look was one of resolve, and in that moment, they seemed to embrace the collective weight of their decision. Together they would navigate the murky waters of family history, confronting what had been abandoned. As Sarah began to read the first letter aloud, the wind howled ominously outside, chilling the warm bubble of their reunion. The atmosphere thickened with tension, each word like a thread drawing them closer to an uncertain future. With every revelation uncovered, a new fissure threatened to crack their familial unity wide open. Just as she reached a particularly alarming sentence, where her husband's regret spilled onto the page, the doorbell rang, piercing through their encapsulated moment. Time froze as they exchanged looks, an unspoken question lingering in the air. What would interrupt this fateful dive into their past? Drawn to the door, Sarah's heart raced, unsure if this was a moment of interruption or another puzzle piece falling into place. As she turned the handle, little did they know that what awaited them could very well reshape not just their understanding of the past, but their present as well. The moment Sarah opened the door, an unexpected chill swept through the house, more than just a draft from the overly cold winter evening. Standing before her was a figure draped in shadows, lit unevenly by the porch light. In that instant, the world fell away, replaced by an urgent focus on the visitor, whose presence felt nothing short of surreal. "Merry Christmas," the stranger said, her voice low yet distinct, like a distant echo coming back to haunt. It took Sarah a second to fully process her own reaction, a mix of confusion and recognition. A potent cocktail of emotions surged within her, heart thumping against her ribs ferociously. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice more composed than she felt. The reality that this moment could break the fragile equilibrium of her family was overwhelming. "Can I come in?" the woman pleaded, urgency mingled with hesitance. With a reluctant nod, Sarah stepped aside, letting the warmth of their home contrast starkly with the frigid aura that surrounded the newcomer. Ethan and Noah, drawn by the muffled exchange, shuffled closer, their expressions morphing from curiosity to concern. "Mom, who's this?" Ethan asked, as his gaze flitted between Sarah and the woman. "Just a visitor," was all Sarah managed to say, sensing the weight of her words could carry significant implications as she tried to gauge the woman's intentions. The visitor seemed to draw in a deep breath before speaking, but it was clear she was holding back. "My name is Emma," she said finally, lifting her chin defiantly as though the name alone contended with the apprehension in the room. "Why are you here?" Noah pressed. It was unlike him to interrogate strangers, but the air was thick with tension, and instinctively he understood the necessity for answers. "I came for you," Emma replied, her eyes darting between the brothers. "And your father." The last words settled heavily in the small living room. Sarah felt her heart constrict, the ground beneath her feet seeming to shift, uncertain. "My father?" Ethan echoed, and Sarah could see the moment he pieced together the puzzle. "He's been hiding a lot from you. There are things that you need to know about his past, your heritage, the truth behind who he really is." 1,000 questions coursed through Sarah's mind. Questions about loyalty, betrayal, and the integrity of the family they built. Memories flooded back, illuminating the corners of her mind that she had tried to darken. "What truths?" she challenged, her voice showcasing a mixture of determination and fear. Could this woman truly shatter what little security they had left? Emma met Sarah's gaze with fierce intensity. "He has lived a double life, and it all started the day he disappeared from your lives." The tension frayed further, weaving threads of anxiety through the very fabric of Sarah's being. The letters she had taken from the envelope now felt trivial in comparison. How could she have prepared for this? What hidden lives could her husband have crafted beyond the image of the loving man she knew? "Don't listen to her," Noah interjected, but his tone lacked conviction. Sarah could sense the simmering conflict within him, a protective instinct battling against the need for honesty at all costs. Sarah was paralyzed for a brief moment, caught between fear of what Emma might reveal and an undeniable desire for truth. "What do you know?" she demanded, her voice steadier than she felt. Emma took a step forward, her eyes softening. "Your father has a legacy, a reason for leaving that you wouldn't expect." With every revelation untangling, Sarah could feel the threads of her family unraveling into chaos. The journey into unearthing the past was no longer just a question of letters or mere words. It demanded a confrontation with a reality far darker than she had any inclination of facing. As Emma continued, Sarah felt the oppressive weight of a fractured family looming, pressing down with relentless urgency. Secrets long buried threatened to surface like malignant shadows, beckoning her into a confrontation she had not anticipated. With the air thickening with revelations yet undisclosed, Sarah wondered, was she strong enough to face the truth? Or would the truths about her husband and their family not only fracture the fragile bonds they clung to, but shatter her own sense of self entirely? The question loomed heavy in her mind as Emma prepared to unveil the secrets that could redefine everything. What awaited them in the uncharted territory of their own history? Questions tumbled around Sarah's mind like loose stones in a stream, each one causing ripples of worry and confusion. The room felt claustrophobic, shadows deepening as Ethan and Noah absorbed Emma's words, their youthful faces painted with disbelief and concern. "Why now?" Sarah's voice cracked slightly, a betraying tremor. "Why come to us with this? With all of this?" Emma seemed to gather her thoughts, drawing strength from the tension in Sarah's voice. "Because you deserve to know the truth," she replied, her tone steady, as if firming up the foundations of her statement. "Hiding it has only caused more hurt. Your father, he is in danger." Danger. The word echoed ominously around the room, twisting inside Sarah's gut. What sort of life had her husband led while they clutched onto fragile illusions of normalcy? "Danger?" Noah asked incredulously, his youthful defiance surfacing again. "What are you talking about? Who are you really?" "Why should we believe you?" Ethan added, crossing his arms, trying to project an air of authority, even as uncertainty flickered in his eyes. "Because I'm here to help you. I can guide you through this." Emma's intense gaze softened, and for a brief moment, Sarah saw a glimpse of vulnerability, a yearning for connection, perhaps even for understanding. Yet, empathy was snuffed out quickly in the face of uncertainty. "Help us? After everything you've stirred up? This isn't just about us anymore," Sarah shot back almost accusingly, her resolve hardened by the sudden need to protect her family at all costs. Emma's expression remained steady, but Sarah could see the flicker of impatience in her eyes. "I know it feels overwhelming, but keeping your heads buried in the sand won't protect you from coming storms." A chilling thought crossed Sarah's mind. How much longer could she ignore the disruption bubbling just below the surface of their seemingly perfect life? What illusions had she been comfortable with that no longer served her? "Fine," Sarah relented, her words tumbling out as she forced herself to confront the terrifying unknown. "Let's say we believe you. What do you know? What's the truth you're hiding behind that shadowy facade?" Emma exhaled slowly, her breath a visible mist in the cold air of the room. "Your husband isn't just a missing father. He's part of something much larger. The work he was involved in. It's dangerous. And if people discover you found out..." Sarah's breath caught, her heart pounding like a drum. People discovering anything about their family felt like an invasion, an opening of wounds that had been carefully stitched up. "What exactly is he involved in?" she pressed, even though the question held an edge of desperation. "The family ties go deeper than you think," Emma responded, her demeanor shifting. "He's tied to a world that involves power, manipulation, and ultimately survival. There are people who would stop at nothing to hide the truth, and you being oblivious makes you all the more vulnerable." Ethan and Noah shifted nervously, drawn into the gravity of their collective predicament. It became apparent to Sarah that they had stumbled into a labyrinth of complex ties, familial connections that were forged under twisted circumstances, and then simply buried with no end in sight. The urge to defend their father bubbled up, but within it lay a significant recognition of their own naivety, something she too felt cracking under the pressured weight of these revelations. She sought stability amid chaos, but at every turn, the ground felt more unstable. "Who do we trust?" Ethan asked, vulnerability cracking his bravado. "How can we be sure you're not just another twist in our lives?" "That's for you to decide," Emma replied, her voice resolute yet compassionate. "But know this. The shadows you fear will consume you if you don't confront them head-on." In that moment of uncertainty, Sarah felt the duality of hope and dread intertwining within her. The path before her branched into chaos and clarity, and though she wanted to protect her family, she'd have to muster the courage to face whatever lay on the other side of their collective fears. Yet, the thought of betrayal loomed, whispering that perhaps the fight to unveil the truth could lead to a deeper betrayal than anyone had anticipated. The power of what was to come rippled through their small space, and Sarah found herself weighing the cost of truth against the fabric of their lives. What if you're wrong? What if digging deeper only unearths further darkness? Emma stepped back and let silence linger, the weight of her words settling like snow on the house, unwilling to melt away entirely. The question echoed in the silence, lingering like a storm cloud. As Sarah weighed her options, One question remained. Could she trust an outsider when her family's past was shrouded in secrecy? The road was narrow, and it would require an unwavering resolve, and perhaps a sacrifice she could hardly fathom. With that uncertainty looming, it became clear that the choice ahead was not just hers alone. It would redefine everything for the boys as well. In the growing darkness of uncharted waters, Sarah steeled herself. The moment had arrived to kiss the shadow of innocence goodbye. The walls of their living room felt like they were closing in, a prison that held secrets and fears too vast for them to comprehend. As Sarah stood there, feeling the weight of Emma's revelations pressing down on her, her resolve began to morph into determination. She could no longer afford to be reactive. This was a moment to forge an active path forward, for herself and for her boys. "Enough of the shadows," she declared, her voice gaining strength. "We need to understand what we're dealing with. Who are these people tied to my husband?" Emma watched her, assessing the shift in Sarah's demeanor. With every second, Sarah felt less like a victim and more like a warrior on the brink of a crusade. She could sense Emma's subtle change in energy, the way her posture straightened, the flicker of recognition in her eyes that Sarah was no longer merely a vessel of shock, but beginning to embody a fierce resolve. "They're part of a network," Emma finally said, each word rich with meaning. "A secret system that thrives on leverage and power. It could be political, criminal, often both. Your husband, Jonas, he was drawn in initially for noble reasons, but—" Emma hesitated as if choosing her words with care. "It turns dangerous when ideals clash with survival instincts. He's been submerged in something that could drag you all down with him." Sarah's heart raced as the layers of her husband's existence unfurled like a map strewn with crossroads. Noble intentions? Jonas? Those two concepts felt irreconcilable. Yet there sat the undeniable truth. Her world had been constructed on a foundation of half-truths and illusions. What lessons had she sheltered her children from? "So what am I supposed to do?" The question came out in a whisper tinged with uncertainty. "Even if we confront these shadows, what if we uncover something we can't take back?" The vulnerability in her voice was tinged with authority as she confronted a deeper panic. On one hand, the truth felt empowering. On the other, it threatened the very fabric of their lives. This precarious balance that held them together was now a gamble against the unseen forces lurking just outside their fragile existence. Emma stepped closer, her gaze steady. "You need to start preparing. There are steps we can take to uncover the layers of this world, to protect your family. It won't be easy, and the dangers you face will become only more pronounced the deeper you dig." Sarah found herself caught in a strike of moral dilemmas and deeply rooted fears. What would be the price for enlightenment? Would facing the truth fortify her resolve, or would it unravel her? She turned her focus to Ethan and Noah, whose faces reflected a mix of confusion and fear. "Do you believe in your father?" she asked them, hesitant yet resolute. Ethan's brows furrowed as he tried to reconcile his faith in Jonas with the swirling chaos of the moment. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Mom," he admitted, his voice trembling. But the flicker of determination was there. "I don't want to abandon him," Noah added. "But if he's in danger, should we really go looking for trouble?" The boys' shared apprehension mirrored her own, a collective pulse of hope and fear flowing through them all, as palpable as the very air they breathed. But this was not just about keeping faith. It was about arming themselves with knowledge and strategy. Sarah exhaled slowly, grounding herself in the reality of her new identity. She had been the protector, the nurturer, but now she would become the leader, her family's beacon in an encroaching night. "Then we need to uncover the truth together," she asserted, her voice solidifying once again with purpose. "If Jonas is surrounded by danger, we won't be passive. We'll confront it with everything we have." A thrill surged within her, the flame of courage dancing where doubt once flickered. She realized that within this chaos lay the potential for personal growth and reclamation. Whatever the cost, She would carve a way through. As Emma nodded, impressed, Sarah felt the gravity of her commitment settle all around her, fortifying her resolve like armor. Each decision moving forward would test her fundamental values, dismantle outdated notions of familial loyalty, and redefine their reality. But as she contemplated who to trust, she couldn't shake the looming question. Were the truths they unearthed going to be the key to their salvation, or the catalyst for their destruction? The adventure was just beginning, intersecting crossroads that promised both peril and revelation. "Next, we need a plan," Sarah declared. The fire of determination stoked anew as their realities shifted around the impending uncertainty. Each step would demand resilience and audacity, but she could feel it. Whatever lay ahead demanded a readiness much greater than she had believed she possessed. That unsettling thought hung in the air like charged electricity. Sarah had taken the first step. Now the hardest part loomed: to face the unknown forces that stood against them. The time had come to confront whatever awaited just beyond the shadows. The sun dipped past the horizon, casting long shadows in the living room. Each flicker of light bounced between the walls, echoing Sarah's growing sense of urgency. She paced the room as plans began to crystallize in her mind. There was work to be done. She could no longer afford to stand still while the complexities of her husband's world loomed threateningly close. "First, we need information," she announced, her voice echoing with newfound authority. Emma nodded, but the look in her eyes indicated the weight of the journey ahead. Knowledge was not enough. It had to be the right kind of knowledge. "What do you have in mind?" Emma asked, tilting her head, framing Sarah's resolve as an invitation to share her vision. "Contact people who might know Jonas's dealings. We can't just sit back and wait. We need to engage." Sarah's thoughts raced toward old acquaintances, people connected by threads of Jonas's former life, colleagues from his past projects, friends who had fallen out of touch. Emma looked thoughtful for a moment. "That could be risky. We must tread carefully. Too many questions could attract unwanted attention." "The risk is necessary," Sarah replied firmly, her mind settling into a determined rhythm. The stakes were too high. She wouldn't allow fear of the unknown to paralyze her progress. With each word, doubt slipped further away, revealing a clearer path forward. She turned to her boys, who stood nearby, eyes wide with concern. The transition in her demeanor was not lost on them. "Ethan, can you think of anyone who might help? A connection from Dad's work?" It was time for Ethan to step into the light, to stretch beyond what he believed possible. Ethan hesitated initially, chewing on his lip, clearly overwhelmed by the situation, yet a spark lit his gaze. I think I remember Dad mentioning a guy named Leo. He was always talking about some old contracts and shady dealings, but I never thought much of it." "That's perfect," Sarah encouraged, excitement flooding her veins. "Reach out to him. See if he'll talk." Noah, lingering in the background, hesitated. "But what if he doesn't want to get involved? What if it puts us all in danger?" The anxiety fluttered in the room, palpable and thick as a storm cloud, but Sarah channeled it, driving forth her resolve. "We won't know unless we try. Besides, we have strength in numbers." Emma's steady presence felt like a lifebuoy in turbulent waters. "We can surround ourselves with allies. This Leo person might not be the villain he seems. He could be an essential resource." With Ethan nodding, Sarah felt the momentum building within them, each member of the family now an integral part of the plan, each voice ringing out with shared audacity. They would approach this together, creating a tighter bond forged through uncertainty. As night descended, they formed makeshift teams around the globe of their shared knowledge. Emma began to scour online resources, seeking patterns hidden in plain sight, while Ethan and Noah teamed up to draft a message to Leo. Sarah found a whiteboard stashed in the corner, the perfect tool to map out their connections. She wrote, "Leo, potential source," then added a question mark, both an invitation and a challenge. In the quiet moments, Her mind whirred. Late-night whispers of what lay ahead, the potential consequences brewing like storm clouds on the horizon. Would they be forging their own path, or weaving deeper into a web of deception? As conversations around the table grew animated, Sarah took a breath, her attention drawn back to the boys' determination. They were part of this, not just bystanders. They were critical members in a nascent alliance. "Whatever happens, we face it together," she reminded them, girding her inner strength. But even as her heart swelled with hope, the shadows pressed in again. A name kept repeating in her mind, hovering just out of reach. Jonas. She was preparing for a confrontation, but would she truly find the man she loved beneath the layers of chaos? A sense of dread coiled in her stomach, the real question looming just behind. What if the truths they uncovered about Jonas weren't what they expected?
With the night stretching long before them, Sarah steeled herself. Clarity was within grasp, yet so was the abyss of uncertainty. Their next steps would demand courage, unveiling layers of both personal identity and familial loyalty. The challenge hung before them, signifying a moment that would reshape everything. The truth awaited. Would it liberate them or become their ruin? As they prepared to reach out to Leo, a realization struck. Nothing would be the same after this. The moment of transition had arrived, and Sarah felt the threads of fate weaving into an intricate tapestry of decisions that would lead them closer to the heart of the matter or deeper into darkness. The next chapter awaited, and she had to be ready. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting striped patterns on the floorboards. Sarah awakened with an urgency that matched the first light of dawn. The discussions of the previous night had ignited a fire within her. There was no retreat now. Her heart raced as she brewed coffee, the familiar scent grounding her amidst the chaos. The boys were still asleep, a brief reprieve before they'd plunge into action. She turned her focus inward, reflecting on how organized chaos had wrapped its tendrils around her life. She was no longer the passive observer, but the orchestrator of her family's next moves. Knowledge and clarity were now her allies. As she poured the coffee, fragments of plans burst into her mind, colliding and reforming into new shapes. How much did she really know about Jonas? How many layers did he conceal? And what did they mean for her family? Thoughts of Leo swirled. Could he help her strip away the facade? The near physical weight of their situation pressed against her chest, demanding resolution. Her phone buzzed from the countertop, snapping her from contemplation. A message from Ethan, already up and in the living room. "I've sent a message to Leo. Just waiting." The simplicity of his words belied the complexity of their situation. Sarah felt a rush of pride for her son. He was more resolute than he realized. Taking a deep breath, she joined him in the living room, where Ethan hovered near the window, his silhouette outlined by the morning sun. "Any response?" she asked, drawing closer. The anxiety of waiting settled like fog, thick and stifling. "No, but he should get back to me soon," Ethan replied, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Does it even make sense to talk to him? What if he's involved in the whole mess?" "Which is why we need to be prepared," she responded, her tone both firm and reassuring. The moment called for fortitude. "It's our only option. Remember, everything we uncover now can fortify our next steps." Ethan nodded, his youthful features sharpening with resolve. "I get it. It's just, what if we uncover something bad about Dad?" The air grew heavy at the mention of Jonas. Impulsively, Sarah reached out and squeezed Ethan's shoulder, a silent promise of support. "We will face it together. I won't let anything tear us apart. You're brave for even asking that." As the minutes ticked by, they filled the void with small tasks, researching more about Jonas's past, piecing together fragments of his life as if constructing a jigsaw puzzle. Emma soon joined them, her eyes bright with the determination she had always shown. "Look at this," she exclaimed, pointing at her laptop screen.
I found Elena, one of Jonas's old colleagues. She might have insight into those shady contracts Ethan mentioned. Contact her, Sarah directed, a plan rapidly forming in her mind. The more perspectives we gather, the stronger our understanding will be. With each new lead, an unexpected thrill surged within Sarah. Each potential encounter contained the possibility of revelation. But with that came the nagging worry of confrontation. If they did discover troubling truths about Jonas, how would it reshape her view of him and of herself? For too long, she had lived in shadows, overshadowed by his presence. This journey demanded her to step forward into the light of her own narrative. The very act of gathering information and maintaining control felt almost liberating. Just as a sense of purpose settled in, Ethan's phone chimed. A notification from Leo. "Hey," he just responded. Ethan's voice broke through the momentary calm. The tension in the room spiked, each hold of breath amplifying the urgency of the moment. Sarah's fingers trembled against the table, a cocktail of excitement and dread swirling in her gut. "What does it say?" Ethan scanned the text quickly. "He wants to meet, today." Time seemed to freeze. The decision weighed heavily. This could pivot the trajectory of their investigation and their family dynamic. Was she ready to confront the implications of what they might learn? Was she certain enough of her own strength to stand firm when the truths could shatter everything she had known? "All right," Sarah finally breathed, resolve blossoming once again. "We meet Leo, but we prepare first. Everyone, let's outline what we need from him." With a newfound sense of agency taking root, her efforts to uncover Jonas's reality would reveal more than just the truth. It would mark the dawn of her own awakening. She could not afford to linger in the shadows any longer. As they set to work, Sarah realized this was her moment. The threads of deception were within reach, and she would weave them into a fabric strong enough to behold the truths yet to come. Would she emerge victorious? Or would she end up ensnared in the web she unraveled? The stakes had never been higher. The truth was only moments away. Sarah gathered the scattered papers on the table, her mind racing through a series of questions that pressed heavily against her thoughts. This was no ordinary meeting. It was an intersection of trust and deceit, and how they navigated this moment could forge or fracture their family. "Okay, let's structure our approach," she said, adjusting her posture to appear more confident than she felt. "We need to identify what we want from Leo. If he's hiding something, we need to make him reveal it." Ethan shifted during the meeting, his eager demeanor faltering slightly under the weight of uncertainty. But what if he's not forthcoming? What will we do then? She paused to consider this, the anxiety gnawing at her from within. "We need to be prepared for any eventuality," she replied, her voice steady, despite the serpent of doubt coiling in her stomach. "Ask direct questions, and don't give him a chance to dodge the answers." Emma rode on the momentum, her fingers dancing across her laptop's keyboard as she pulled up data about Leo. "I'll draft a list of the key points we need to hit," she declared, her focus unwavering. Feeling stirred by her children's determination, Sarah felt the flicker of her own courage alight. She focused on the feelings surging within her. A blend of anxiety and empowerment stirred in her chest. Perhaps this meeting with Leo was the moment for her to assert her authority, not just as a mother, but as the primary architect of her own life. With their groundwork laid out, time slipped through their fingers like sand, and soon it was time to leave. Driving to the coffee shop where Leo had chosen to meet, Sarah attempted to calm the storm brewing in her mind. Could she truly maintain her composure? The prospect of facing someone who might have vital information about Jonas paralyzed her with fear, but it was too late for retreat. The shadows of doubt had stirred, but they wouldn't define her anymore. When they arrived, the cafe buzzed with sounds of clinking cups and light chatter. The three of them wound their way to a secluded table at the back. Leo sat there, looking as composed as ever, but Sarah sensed a tension beneath his casual exterior. This man held the key to unraveling what had bound them to Jonas's spiraling chaos. Sarah, Ethan, Emma. Glad you could make it. Leo greeted with a smile that felt like an invitation laced with something else. Danger, perhaps. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Sarah replied, steeling her voice. We're here to talk about my husband. The corner of Leo's mouth quirked. Of course. What specifically did you want to know? The directness of his response surprised her, but she found strength in the abruptness. There are inconsistencies in what Jonas has shared about his work. I need you to clarify his role and any contracts he may have handled. She watched closely as he leaned back, assessing their tone, gauging the resolve in her expression. It's never simple when it comes to his line of work. You have to understand how complicated things can get. Ethan interrupted boldly, buoyed by his mother's presence. If we're going to get to the bottom of this, you need to be completely honest. Is there anything we should know about Jonas that we don't? In that moment, Leo faltered, and Sarah's heart raced. Had they pushed too hard? But within that momentary hesitation, an opening emerged. The potential for clarity hung in the air, like a silent challenge waiting to be answered. She leaned forward, catching Leo's gaze. This isn't just business. This is family. We want honesty, Leo. Lives depend on it. An unexpected wave of fear washed over her. Could she trust him? Or was he merely another facade in Jonas's elaborate web? As Leo's eyes narrowed, contemplating their intensity, Sarah felt a stirring inside her, an innate strength awakening. This wasn't just about Jonas anymore. It was about her reclaiming her agency, demanding the truth. Leo's lips parted as he began to speak, but before the words could materialize, the door swung open, and a figure stepped inside, drawing everyone's attention. Is this where the truth is? The newcomer asked, voice low and cutting through the cafe chatter, instantly heightening the tension. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Who was this? What ground had just shifted beneath their feet? Unraveling one thread only to find another tangled tightly around her could be the turning point in her fight for clarity. What revelation awaited? Would it liberate her, or deepen the labyrinth of deception surrounding Jonas? The stakes had just escalated, and the truth loomed closer than ever. The figure stepped into the cafe, a striking presence that seemed to draw the eyes of every patron. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, igniting an uncomfortable urgency. Who was this person, and how did they know about Leo? About Jonas? Their cool demeanor exuded an unsettling familiarity, and her pulse quickened with an instinctive awareness that this encounter was spiraling out of her control. Are you here to help? Sarah finally managed to ask, trying to regain her footing in this shifting landscape. The newcomer looked at her, dark eyes assessing her with an intensity that made her involuntarily shiver. I'm here for the truth, the person replied, blunt and unyielding. Macy, we need to talk. What do you know about Jonas? Ethan interjected, his youthful confidence now shadowed by a subtle anxiety. Macy's gaze flicked to Leo, who remained unnervingly still, betraying nothing beyond his trademark calmness. Jonas is deep in something he can't escape from, and it's about time someone held him accountable, she retorted, her voice steady yet laced with urgency. At that moment, the undertone pivoted dramatically, and Sarah felt the weight of Macy's words settle over her. Accountability. It was what she longed for, yet the more she sought, the less she felt she understood. Suddenly, the pieces of the puzzle she thought she'd been assembling began to scatter again, fracturing her sense of purpose. Do you have proof? Sarah asked, instinctively crossing her arms, a defensive posture for the unsettling turbulence around her. Macy studied her for a moment longer, then nodded slightly. Meet me later. There's a lot more at stake than just your family's well-being. I can show you what Jonas has concealed. Suspicion swirled, entwining with a dangerous glimmer of hope. Should she trust this stranger? Her instincts warned her while a flicker of desperation urged her toward the truth, whatever it might be. "Enough of the cryptic games, Macy." Leo's voice cut through the tension, his composure wavering for the first time. "If you have something to say it here." But Macy wasn't rattled. Instead, she stood taller, challenging Leo with a gaze that radiated defiance. "You're not in control anymore, Leo. It's time for the truth to surface." The emotional stakes felt palpable, and when Sarah noticed the small bead of sweat forming at the edge of Leo's temple, waves of realization crashed over her. He was implicated, tied to whatever twisted narrative Macy hinted at. "Are you working with Jonas?" Ethan pressed, eyes narrowed. Macy's faint smile revealed no comfort. "He's not the only player in this game, and countless lives are affected. If you really want answers, you'll need to step out of the shadows and meet me later." The tension pulsed, tightening around Sarah's throat like a vice. This was no longer just about seeking clarity. It was an urgent call for action. She sensed the gravity of the moment, a pivotal point where she could reclaim her narrative. The notion of collaborating with someone who seemed to harbor answers was both alluring and terrifying. Noticing her hesitation, Emma spoke softly, her voice slicing through the tension. "Mom, we need to decide what to do next. Are we really going to trust her?" As Sarah weighed their options, every instinct propelled her toward choice and action. The world suddenly felt enormous, and the truth maddeningly elusive. Leah's betrayal set against this unfathomable chaos threatened to reshape everything she thought she knew. Was it time to venture into the unknown? To risk further upheaval in pursuit of the ultimate truth? It was the bridge she had to cross, running toward the tempest of uncertainty, or remaining mired in the labyrinth of betrayal. "We need to meet her," Sarah declared. And with those words, she felt a resurgence of her inner strength, a flickering flame igniting within her. Yet as the words left her mouth, she couldn't shake the cloud of doubt that loomed. What awaited her in this confrontation? Would the answers bring liberation, or only deepen her entanglement in Jonas's perilous web? The melody of uncertainty sang in her ears as the decision reverberated. This was a crossroads she had never anticipated, stepping into darkness in search of illumination. "Then let's move quickly," Ethan urged, echoing his mother's renewed determination. In that moment, a new chapter was poised to unfold. As they steeled themselves for the truth, Sarah could sense a turning tide, her resolve hardening like steel, preparing to face whatever came next. But as they turned to leave the cafe, she caught a fleeting glimpse of Leo's face, a cryptic mixture of worry and resignation. Two worlds were colliding, and the stage was set for turmoil that could either shatter their world or reassemble it anew. What further secrets lay beneath the surface? Would she emerge unraveling her husband's deception, or become ensnared in another game entirely? The answer beckoned just beyond the immediate chaos. The air outside the cafe was brisk, and Sarah felt it pressing against her as they stepped into the uncertainty ahead. Macy walked a few paces ahead, her frame set with determination, leading them to a nearby park where she indicated they could talk freely. Each footfall echoed the urgency building inside Sarah. This was no longer merely a search for answers, but an awakening to the reality of her own strength and agency. "Why do you want to expose Jonas now?" Sarah asked, striving for calm. "What's changed?" Macy turned to face her, the streetlights casting shadows across her sharp features. "Everything has changed, and it will get worse if we allow him to remain unchecked. People are at stake, people who don't deserve Jonas's secrets," she said, her voice carrying a weight of urgency that sent chills down Sarah's spine. Every word cut through the fog of her confusion. Until now, Sarah had hesitated at the precipice of revealing her husband's hidden life. Yet, with each moment she stood in this newfound clarity, that hesitation transformed into an undeniable drive. She could no longer drift in ambiguity. She must confront the reality shaping her family's narrative. "All right, if we're doing this, I need to know exactly what he's involved in, Sarah stated firmly, meeting Macy's unwavering gaze. No more secrets. With an assertive nod, Macy led them to a secluded bench beneath the overhanging branches, casting a dark but cozy ambiance around their gathering. As they settled in, the world felt distorted, spinning around them yet offering a clear focus on the concerns that lay ahead. Jonas is part of a broader network, Macy began, her tone transforming from defensive to instructional, unveiling layers of deceit, as if peeling away each carefully crafted facade. He's connected to dealings that could jeopardize lives, your lives. The work he engaged in without revealing its full scope has come back to haunt him. A knot tightened in Sarah's chest. Each revelation stirred a voiceless ache, a betrayal not only against her, but against the family they had built from the ashes of loss. What kind of dealings? Who are these people? People who operate in the shadows, Macy replied, her intensity sharpening. They have power, connections, and a way of crushing anyone who threatens their operations. Jonas got tangled because of a project that originally seemed altruistic, but as it developed, it morphed into something far more sinister. Questions rained down on Sarah, mixing dread and determination. This was no longer a singular tale of a disappeared husband. The realization washed over her. Her family was entwined in a perilous dance, and the first step toward solid ground was truth. What do we need to do? Macy leaned closer, her voice urgent yet calm. You must be proactive. Connect with people willing to stand against these shadows. The vulnerability of ignorance is no longer your ally. Do you have contacts at his old workplace? They may have more information on what he has been doing. With Macy's words, Sarah felt herself moving into action. No longer the passive figure engulfed by fear, but a champion of her own narrative. I do know some colleagues he respected. I'll start reaching out, she resolved. It's time we forged our own path to regain our power. As she spoke, she noticed Ethan and Noah hovering nearby, taking in their surroundings. Ethan's expression seemed a mixture of apprehension and fierce loyalty. Mom, are you sure about all of this? What if it puts us all in danger? Life has already put us in danger by staying silent, Sarah shot back, her voice filled with conviction. If our hidden truths can crush us, then we need to confront them head on. Are you with me? The air around them thickened with unspoken apprehensions, and for a moment, uncertainty flickered in Ethan and Noah's eyes. But then, they exchanged glances, an unbreakable bond igniting between them. We're with you, Ethan affirmed, his voice steady. Whatever it takes, Noah added, summoning his courage. In that moment, Sarah felt the collective strength unhitching the shackles that had long restrained them. This was more than family. It was a unified force carving a pathway through complexity. Then let's get to work. Together, they departed from the park with a sense of purpose igniting inside them. Each step a proclamation against the murky shadows that had dominated their lives for far too long. Back home, Sarah dove into her contacts, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Each name she reached out to represented a thread she grasped firmly in her pursuit of truth. Conversations flowed, weaving together meetings with individuals who possessed valuable insights and knowledge about Jonas. Every piece collected built a clearer understanding of the dual life he led and raised questions about how far it had extended into their lives. As days turned into weeks, the shadow of uncertainty began to shrink amidst the burgeoning light of revelation. Each reply brought forth connections that deepened their resolve. They learned about the web of deceit surrounding Jonas's projects and uncovered enough layers of truth that it transformed their familial dynamics into something wholly different. Secrets morphed into a catalyst for personal growth. Sarah witnessed her sons redefine their resilience. In one pivotal conversation, a former colleague shed light on Jonas's entrapments. He fell into it for all the right reasons, but once the money and power took over, it controlled him. The background of manipulation painted a sobering portrait of a man Sarah thought she knew. But even through all the revelations, a profound shift occurred within her. She had gone from feeling powerless in the wake of her husband's absence to embracing the capacity for strength, leadership, and agency as a mother. She began to see herself not through the lens Jonas created, but through a newfound clarity of her own value, catalyzed by the truth. The climax unfurled itself one evening, as the final pieces clicked together. Beneath the streetlights, Sarah and her sons confronted Jonas, who arrived back in town sensing the growing storm. They assembled in the living room, the air thick with anticipation. Sarah stood tall, strategically positioned between Ethan and Noah, defending what she had uncovered, the truth that had empowered them all. "Jonas, we know about the connections," she stated, her voice resolute. "It's time to confront what you've hidden from us. We deserve your honesty, and you owe it to us to explain this life you've chosen." His initial shock faded into resignation, and the truth of his choices washed over them like a tidal wave threatening to drown them beneath its weight. As the layers peeled away, an unexpected resolution formed as family members exchanged their perspectives on pain, love, and accountability. How they navigated this tumultuous sea of truth would redefine their family in ways they had yet to comprehend. After a tumultuous journey marred by the shadows of deceit, Sarah finally emerged, transmuting fear into fierce clarity. As they let the revelations wash over them, she understood that everyone held pieces of their family's story. Ultimately, the strength derived from confronting uncertainty had far outpaced any fear of unearthing painful truths. That evening solidified Sarah's world anew, as guiding lights flickered back to life. They were still a family, standing amidst the ruins of false narratives, transitioning toward a flourishing future steeped in honest dialogue. Amidst the wounds laid bare, hope emerged from the chosen confrontation, their bond more solid than ever. And as the night deepened outside, Sarah took a moment to feel the profound transformation. This was not simply the moment of reconciling with Jonas, but rather the defining moment of embracing the power of truth. She reclaimed her identity and cemented her roles as both leader and protector. With the weight of the past subtracted, she felt lighter, anchored in purpose, a powerful force ready to guide her family through any storms that lay ahead. The journey driven by truth and vulnerability had been arduous, but the horizon now shimmered with promise, and Sarah had ignited her legacy of strength and courage. As she embraced Ethan and Noah in a powerful familial hug, she felt a renewed sense of clarity, a shared bond tethered by their journey, grounded in honesty and overcoming the shadows. They were united now, forging forward, with the strength of courage illuminating their path into an unknown yet hopeful future. And in that moment, Sarah realized that the truth she had fought for had set them all free. Don't wait another second. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories. This is the moment to engage. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Let's spread the message of overcoming together.